Today we're going to talk about self-defense lessons that we can learn from the tragic death of Leandro Lo, the jiu-jitsu champion. And we're going to ask if martial arts training makes us actually less safe than more safe. Even a great amount of martial arts training is skill. So Leandro Lo passed away recently. Tragically, he was a 33-year-old, eight-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. One of the best Jiu-Jitsu champions and competitors out there. Been competing, I think, for the last 11 years or so, and doing really well, obviously. So the story of his death. Basically, I guess they were at a concert. I'm not sure what type of concert it was, but obviously they had tables and they had drinks. And Leandro was there, and this off-duty police officer, I guess, or military police or something, I wasn't really sure on the details, took a bottle off Leandro's table. And Leandro confronted him on that, and an argument ensued. Leandro took him down, got on top of him, got on top of the off-duty police officer, and kind of held him down, controlled him, just like you would expect a jiu-jitsu champion to be able to do, and said, are we done here? We're done here, right? And then he got up and walked away, or they separated him. They're a little unclear on the details of that, but anyway, he got up, walked away. And Veloso, the police officer, went after him and pulled out a gun and shot him in the head and killed him. After he went down, one of the witnesses says that they kicked him in the head. He kicked him in the head twice after the incident. Obviously emotional and enraged after all of that. So, tragic, horrible story, right? But what can we as martial artists learn from that? I think a lot. I think there's a lot to learn from that. It reminds me also, there's a story about Alex Gong years ago, a great Muay Thai champion, and I believe this was out in California. He saw through the window when he was training Muay Thai at his school. Somebody carjacked his car. He went out there with his gloves on, chased after the car, started punching the guy through the open window, and the guy pulled out a gun and shot and killed Alex Gong. So two champions, one in Muay Thai and one in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, separated by years here, obviously, but both tragically killed at the peak of their game. How could that happen? Isn't martial arts supposed to protect us? So let me go back in Leandro's story and kind of talk about some problems. So there was alcohol at this event, and not that I'm saying you should avoid places where there are alcohol, but you need to understand that most incidents of assault happen where there is alcohol. So if you're going to be around places where there are alcohol, everybody's judgment is going to be off, and they're not going to be rational, because that dulls that part of the brain. Alcohol does, and you're not able to think, with your cerebral cortex logically and rationally. And you may not be thinking logically and rationally if your reflexes may be dulled if you're drinking. So whether you go there or not, you should realize that of that deficit and that chance you're taking. And so that was Leandro's case. What was his next mistake, or what was his first mistake, I guess you could say, was the guy took the bottle off his table. And did Leandro need to confront him over that? Could he just been, hey man, have a good time, go ahead and have it, no problem, because think about it, he lost his life over that bottle. He lost his life over that. Could have spent like $2, lost $2, and still been alive today, still been competing, still been helping people. But he lost his life because of that. And we all need to think about that too. The next mistake he made was probably confronting the guy and arguing. I guess there's a good way to confront people and a bad way, but think about this. When you're at a venue like that, and there's egos, and there's two guys, and there's drinking, confronting someone comes with some risk. So that may have been the next mistake. The next mistake obviously was getting physical. It might not have gotten to that point if he would have done any of those earlier things, but everything leads to something. All your choices lead to something bad or good, right? So it got physical. And then the next mistake he made was not getting out of there right away after they separated. He should have got out of there fast. Because like one of my instructors says, if there's an argument or a conflict or something like that, you leave the venue where you're at right away, because it could lead to something more. And even if the other person that you got the argument or conflict leaves, you still leave, because they might be going to get a gun or they might be going to get their friends. You never know. So if you want to keep safe, those are all mistakes that he made that led to his untimely death. And some things that we need to think about, right? The same with Alex Gong. He didn't need to do that. He had car insurance. I mean, it's ego. So the question is, does martial arts help or hurt your survival? Here's my thought, that if you're into martial arts for your ego, if you're into martial arts for just sport, like Leandro was primarily, you're used to winning. You always want to win the conflict. You should win the conflict, and it leads to something like this, someone's death. But if you're into martial arts for self-defense, to help the world become a better place, then you give that guy your bottle and you say, hey man, have a good time. You know what I mean? Because you don't, sport is about ego. Sport is about, I guess at its worst, that's what sport is. And it can lead to death, and it can lead to fights, and it can lead to things like that because you need to win. But self-defense is about survival. And sometimes it's like, and you don't need to, you don't want to have an ego when it comes to self-defense, because that leads to bad things like this. So sometimes your martial arts, you need to think about it. Is it leading you to a bigger ego that will lead you to more conflict? Or is it leading you to keep yourself safe, keep yourself alive, so that your loved ones and your family aren't going to be missing you, and you're going to be dead and not taking care of them? So whether you go like, well, I got to have an ego and I got to show off and all this stuff, you need to think about that, because when you're not alive, or you're in a coma, or you're in the hospital for months or years, no one's going to be helping your family. And, so that's something to think about. I always think about this too. In Sun Tzu's Art of War, the book, he always talks about leaving people with a, you never totally destroy the enemy, he would say. Like, you always leave them a respectable way out, because then they don't feel like they have to have vengeance. You know what I mean? He could have confronted the guy and said, hey, no problem, man. Let me get you a drink, you and your friends or whatever, and then left it at that. He could have done that and let the guy swear at him and call him names and then just walked away. And, so sometimes doing that is a smart thing to do. Leave them a way out so that they don't have to feel so defeated in front of others, which can lead to things like that. And obviously, that's what this led to. So, as tragic as this is, I hope that people are listening to me and they can learn something and become better martial artists, and maybe even some martial arts teachers can listen and teach this to their students, instead of just teaching ego-driven martial arts where you have to defeat somebody. You don't have to defeat anybody. You just need to survive and live and take care of your family and friends. So there's some advice. I hope you take it to heart. So if you can like, share, and subscribe to the channel, get this word out there and help some people, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.